The Great Lakes are vast. They look like seas. Their waters stretch to the horizon, touching the sky in a seamless blue line. On a calm day, the surface is like glass. On a stormy day, waves crash against the shore with incredible force. These are not just large bodies of water, they are inland oceans. They hold 1/5 of the world's fresh surface water. They have shaped the lives of people for thousands of years. From the earliest native peoples to the bustling cities of today, the lakes have been a source of life, transport, and mystery. Their depths hold stories we are only just beginning to understand. Beneath the shimmering surface lies a hidden world. It is a world of shadows and silence. Down in the cold, dark water, the past is preserved. Shipwrecks from centuries of maritime trade lie perfectly intact. They are time capsules from another era. But there are older secrets, much older. Secrets from a time when the lakes were not lakes at all. A time when mammoths and caribou roamed on dry land where today there is only water. This submerged landscape holds the key to understanding a lost chapter of North American history. It is a world frozen in time, waiting to be discovered. For most of history, what lay at the bottom of the Great Lakes was a complete mystery. Fishermen would sometimes pull up strange stones or animal bones in their nets. But no one could truly see what was down there. The water was too deep, too cold, and too vast. It was a realm of imagination filled with tales of sea monsters and lost treasures. Only with modern technology have we been able to peel back the curtain of water. Sonar, submersibles, and remote-controlled vehicles have become our eyes, allowing us to map this unseen territory. They reveal a landscape more complex and fascinating than anyone ever dreamed. These freshwater seas are more than just a geographic feature. They are a living record of immense change. They tell a story of ice, water, and rock. They speak of dramatic climate shifts that transform the continent. They whisper tales of the first people who walked this land, adapting to a world that was constantly changing around them. Uncovering the secrets of the Great Lakes is not just about finding old things. It is about connecting with our deep past. It is about understanding how our world came to be and how resilient life can be in the face of profound environmental transformation. For a long time, we thought the story of the first people in the Great Lakes region began after the lakes were formed. We looked for clues on the current shorelines. We found ancient villages, burial mounds, and pottery fragments. These discoveries told us a lot about the people who lived here over the past few thousand years. But we were missing a huge part of the story. The real beginning was much earlier. It happened during a time when the water levels were dramatically lower. The land that is now deep underwater was once dry and teeming with life. The breakthrough came with new technology. Scientists began using advanced sonar to map the lake beds. They were not looking for people, they were looking for geological features. But they found something unexpected. They saw clear signs of ancient riverbeds and shorelines far below the modern water surface. These were not random patterns, they were the clear outlines of a lost landscape. It was like finding a hidden continent right in our own backyard. This discovery changed everything. It meant that a whole world had been drowned when the glaciers melted and the lakes filled up. Imagine a time, about 9,000 years ago, the last great ice sheets were retreating north. The world was warming up. As the massive weight of the ice disappeared, the land began to slowly rebound. This process, called isostatic rebound, was not even. Some areas rose faster than others. This created a period where water levels in the Proto-Great Lakes were hundreds of feet lower than they are today. Vast stretches of land that are now at the bottom of Lake Huron and Lake Michigan were exposed. It was a different world, a drier world with new opportunities for life. This drowned world is incredibly significant. It represents a missing piece of the puzzle of human migration in the Americas. The people who lived on this land were the descendants of the first humans to enter the continent. They were skilled hunters and gatherers, adapting to a rapidly changing post-glacial environment. By studying this submerged landscape, we can learn how they lived. We can understand their hunting strategies, their travel routes, and their social structures. The bottom of the Great Lakes holds a pristine record of this ancient human experience preserved by the cold, fresh water. Deep beneath the waves of Lake Huron lies a remarkable feature. It is a narrow strip of land that connects modern-day Michigan to Ontario. Scientists call it the Alpena-Amberley Ridge. Today, it is submerged under more than 100 feet of water, but for a period of about 2,000 years, this ridge was a dry land corridor. It was a natural bridge in a world dominated by water and melting ice. The ridge was not a flat plain, it had its own hills, valleys, and basins. Some of these basins held small lakes, providing fresh water for the animals and people who used this route. This land bridge was critically important for life in the region. Think of it as a highway for ancient animals. Great herds of caribou, a key food source for early peoples, would have used this corridor for their seasonal migrations. They would have moved back and forth between their summer and winter grazing grounds. The ridge provided a predictable path for them to follow. For the Paleo-Indian hunters who depended on these animals, the ridge was a place of immense opportunity. It concentrated the movement of game, making hunting more reliable and successful. It was a lifeline in a challenging landscape. The discovery of the Alpena-Amberley Ridge was a triumph of modern science. Researchers from the University of Michigan used high-resolution sonar to meticulously map the lake floor. They pieced together a detailed picture of this ancient landform. They could see the old river channels that once flowed across it. They identified the rocky outcrops that would have provided shelter. By combining this underwater mapping with computer simulations of past water levels, they were able to bring this lost world back to life. Their work showed that this was not just a random piece of rock, it was a functioning ecosystem. The existence of this dry corridor forces us to rethink the early history of the Great Lakes. It was not an empty wasteland waiting for the water to rise. It was a vibrant and active landscape. It was a place where human history unfolded. The people who lived here were not just passively surviving. They were actively shaping their environment and developing complex strategies to thrive. The Alpena-Amberley Ridge was the stage for this human drama. It was a bridge not just between two pieces of land, but between a forgotten past and our present understanding. Life on the Alpena-Amberley Ridge was shaped by the seasons. During the long, cold winters, the land would have been covered in snow. The wind would have howled across the exposed landscape. The people who lived here would have needed warm shelters and good clothing made from animal hides. They would have relied on stored food and perhaps ice fishing in the small inland lakes on the ridge. Survival would have been a constant challenge, but these were resourceful people. They had generations of knowledge about how to live in a cold environment. They knew how to find shelter, make fire, and endure the harshest conditions. Spring would have brought a dramatic change. As the snow melted, the land would come alive. Plants would begin to grow, and migratory birds would return. Most importantly, the great caribou herds would begin their journey north across the ridge. For the Paleo-Indian hunters, this was the most important time of the year. It was a time of plenty. They would gather in groups to coordinate their hunts. Success meant not just food for the coming weeks, but also hides for clothing and tents, and bones for tools. The entire community would have been focused on the migration. Archaeologists believe that life on the ridge was organized around this annual caribou migration. The people would not have lived in one place year-round. They were likely semi-nomadic, moving with the seasons and the animals. They would have had seasonal camps set up at key locations along the ridge. These camps would have been placed in strategic spots, perhaps overlooking the migration routes. From these vantage points, they could watch for the approaching herds. This lifestyle required a deep understanding of the landscape and animal behavior. It was a life deeply connected to the rhythms of nature. The social world of these ancient people was probably rich and complex. They would have lived in small family-based groups for much of the year. But during the major hunting seasons, these groups would have come together. These larger gatherings would have been important social events. It was a time to share information, arrange marriages, and reinforce community ties. Stories would be told around the fire and rituals would be performed to ensure a successful hunt. The Alpina Amberley Ridge was not just a hunting ground, it was a homeland, a place where culture and community were forged. One of the most exciting discoveries on the Alpina Amberley Ridge is, honestly, the presence of ancient hunting structures. Using remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, archaeologists have found stone constructions on the lakebed. These are not natural formations, they are clearly man-made. The most common structures are lines of rocks that form what are known as drive lanes. These stone lines would have acted like fences. Hunters would use them to funnel herds of caribou towards a specific point, like a cliff, a water trap, or an ambush spot where other hunters were waiting with spears. Finding these structures is incredible proof of organized large-scale hunting. Building a drive lane system required a lot of cooperation and planning. A group of people had to work together to find and move hundreds of stones. They had to understand the landscape and predict how the caribou would react. This was not a simple, opportunistic hunt. It was a sophisticated strategy passed down through generations. These stone lines show a high level of social organization and a deep knowledge of animal behavior. They are the silent testament to the ingenuity of these ancient people. In addition to the drive lanes, researchers have found what appear to be hunting blinds. These are V-shaped or circular stone structures. A single hunter could hide inside one of these blinds, waiting for the caribou to be herded towards them. The blinds are often positioned at the end of the drive lanes in the perfect spot for an ambush. From inside the blind, a hunter would be concealed from view, able to get very close to the animals without startling them. The discovery of these blinds gives us a very personal glimpse into the tense, focused moments of the hunt itself. The preservation of these structures is, honestly, remarkable. On land, similar ancient stone constructions are often disturbed or destroyed by farming, construction, or erosion. But at the bottom of Lake Huron, they have been protected. The cold, fresh water and the layers of sediment have kept them safe for 9,000 years. They are almost perfectly preserved, as if the hunters just walked away yesterday. This allows archaeologists to study them in a way that is rarely possible on land. These submerged hunting sites are a unique window into the technologies and strategies of North America's earliest inhabitants. To understand the drowned world of the Great Lakes, we must go back even further in time. We must go back to the Ice Age. For thousands of years, a massive sheet of ice called the Laurentide Ice Sheet covered most of North America. It was a colossal river of ice, in some places more than a mile thick. Its immense weight pressed down on the land, carving and scraping the earth beneath it. The Great Lakes, as we know them, did not exist. Instead, the basins they now occupy were gouged out and deepened by the slow, grinding movement of these continental glaciers. The geology of the Great Lakes region made it perfect for this process. The bedrock is not uniform. It is made of layers of hard and soft rock. The glaciers acted like giant sandpaper. They scraped away the softer rock, like shale and limestone, more easily than the harder rock, like granite. This differential erosion created the deep basins that would one day hold the lakes. You can see this pattern in the shape of the lakes today. They tend to be long and deep, aligned with the direction of the ice flow. The ice was the master sculptor of this landscape. The climate during this time was unimaginably different. It was a world of intense cold. The edge of the ice sheet was a dramatic and dynamic place. Huge chunks of ice would break off, a process called calving, creating temporary lakes and floods. The wind blowing off the glacier was frigid. The landscape just south of the ice was a treeless tundra, similar to modern-day northern Canada or Siberia. It was a harsh and unforgiving environment. Only the hardiest plants and animals could survive here, like mosses, lichens, mammoths, and mastodons. This long period of glaciation set the stage for everything that followed. The ice created the basins. It deposited huge amounts of sand, gravel, and clay as it melted. These glacial deposits shaped the future drainage patterns and shorelines. The immense weight of the ice pushed the land down. As the ice finally began to melt around 15,000 years ago, that weight was lifted. The land began its slow, long journey of rising back up. This rebound, combined with the massive amounts of meltwater, triggered a series of dramatic events that would ultimately give birth to the Great Lakes. The end of the Ice Age was not a gentle process. It was a time of chaos and cataclysmic change. As the climate warmed, the colossal Laurentide ice sheet began to melt. This released an almost unimaginable volume of water. The meltwater pooled at the edge of the retreating ice, forming vast, temporary lakes. These glacial lakes were often dammed by the ice sheet itself or by ridges of glacial debris called moraines. They were unstable and dangerous. Sometimes these ice dams would fail catastrophically. When an ice dam broke, it would unleash a megaflood. A wall of water, ice, and rock would roar across the landscape, scouring everything in its path. These floods carved new river valleys and reshaped the land in a matter of days or weeks. The evidence for these great floods is written in the geology of the region. We can see giant ripple marks on the land, scoured channels, and massive deposits of boulders far from their origin. These events were on a scale that is hard to comprehend today. They were some of the largest floods in Earth's history. The formation of the Great Lakes was a complex dance between water, ice, and land. As the ice sheet retreated, it opened up different outlets for the meltwater to drain. At times, the water drained east towards the Atlantic Ocean through the St. Lawrence River. At other times, it drained south through the Mississippi River system. The water levels in the lake basins rose and fell dramatically as these outlets opened and closed. This is why the Alpena Amberley Ridge was exposed for a time. The main outlet had shifted, causing the water level in the Lake Huron Basin to drop by hundreds of feet. This period of low water, known as the Lake Stanley Stage, lasted for thousands of years. It was during this time that the dry corridor was used by plants, animals, and people. But it was not permanent. The land continued to rebound from the weight of the ice. The area around the St. Lawrence River Valley rose, slowly closing off a lower outlet. Meanwhile, the ice continued to melt, adding more water to the system. Eventually, the water levels began to rise again. The ancient shorelines were flooded. The rivers, plains, and hunting grounds of the Paleo-Indians were slowly, inexorably submerged, creating the Great Lakes we see today. The submerged landscapes of the Great Lakes are not just a record of human history. They're also a graveyard of extinct animals. For thousands of years before and during the time of the Paleo-Indians, North America was home to a spectacular collection of large mammals known as megafauna. These were the giants of the Ice Age. Woolly mammoths, with their long, curved tusks and shaggy coats, roamed the tundra. Mastodons, their shorter, stockier cousins, browsed in the spruce forests. These massive animals were a key part of the ecosystem. Occasionally, the remains of these incredible beasts are found in or around the Great Lakes. Fishermen have pulled up mammoth teeth and mastodon bones in their nets. Skeletons have been found in bogs and ponds near the current shorelines, places that were once part of the larger post-glacial drainage system. One of the most famous discoveries was the Bweshing mastodon, found in Indiana. Its skeleton was almost complete, and scientists even found its last meal of plants preserved in its gut. These finds give us a direct link to the world these animals inhabited. The Paleo-Indians, who lived on the Alpena Amberley Ridge, would have shared the land with some of these animals. While their main prey was caribou, they would have certainly encountered mammoths and mastodons. Finding evidence of a mammoth or mastodon kill site on the submerged ridge would be a discovery of monumental importance. It would tell us more about the hunting capabilities of these early people. Did they actively hunt these giants, or did they scavenge them when they found them dead? These are questions that underwater archaeology might one day help us answer. The story of the megafauna ends in extinction. Around 11,000 years ago, most of these large mammal species disappeared from North America. The cause of this extinction is a major scientific debate. Some scientists believe it was due to the rapid climate change at the end of the Ice Age. The habitats these animals depended on disappeared. Other scientists argue that human hunting pressure from skilled Paleo-Indian hunters was the main cause. It was likely a combination of both factors. The submerged lands of the Great Lakes may hold clues that could help solve this long-standing mystery. The exploration of the Great Lakes' submerged landscapes is still in its early days. We have only mapped a tiny fraction of the lake beds in high resolution. What we have found on the Alpina Amberley Ridge is likely just the beginning. There could be hundreds or even thousands of other archaeological sites waiting to be discovered. There could be other hunting structures, campsites, and even ritual locations preserved beneath the waves. Each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of our continent's deep history, and the potential for future finds is immense. The technology for underwater exploration is constantly improving. New generations of autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, can map vast areas of the lakebed faster and in greater detail than ever before. Advances in sensor technology will allow us to detect more subtle features. Artificial intelligence can help us analyze the massive amounts of data we collect, identifying potential sites for closer inspection. As these tools become more powerful and less expensive, we will be able to launch more ambitious and comprehensive surveys of these underwater realms. The pace of discovery is set to accelerate. This research has profound implications. It is changing our understanding of how and when people populated the Americas. It shows that the first inhabitants were not just primitive survivors, but sophisticated and adaptable people with complex societies. They managed their resources and engineered their landscape to suit their needs. This research also provides a powerful lesson about climate change. The world of the Paleo-Indians was transformed by a warming climate and rising sea or lake levels. Their story is a reminder of how dramatically our world can change and how human societies must adapt or be displaced. The greatest challenge for the future is protection. These underwater sites are incredibly fragile. Once disturbed, their scientific value can be lost forever. They are threatened by things like dredging, pipeline construction, and even careless anchoring. It is crucial that we establish policies to protect these submerged heritage sites. They are an irreplaceable part of our shared human story. The sunken past of the Great Lakes is a trust. It is our responsibility to explore it with care, to learn its lessons, and to preserve it for future generations to study and marvel at. The silent, deep waters still have many more secrets to tell.